I have a guest, but I have been left to the whole operation on my own. Stocks is still on his sabbatical. Lee is now in Cyprus, I believe, for work. So that's why there's no snazzy intro. There's nothing too special going on. It's pretty basic. It's me, it's a guest who I'll get to in just a minute if you're listening to this on the audio version, which will be coming out tomorrow. But before I do, teased it last week, we do have a new sponsor for this week, and amazing that we've been picked up. And this show is now being brought to you by Manscaped. Now, Manscaped is the best in the world when it comes to men's below the waist grooming. In terms of what they do, it's absolutely phenomenal. In fact, I've got mine here. I used it over the weekend. I was kind enough to be sent one, and it's just really, really lightweight. It's really easy to use, doesn't cut you, and you definitely don't want to be making the mistake of having the same razor for your face as you do for your below the waist grooming. So this is their 4.0 lawnmower, which is fourth generation. It's brand new out in the market, now available in Europe. If you use the code 5YARD, you'll get 20% off plus worldwide free shipping. So use the code 5YARD. Links in the show notes, but go on to manscaped.com. Use the code 5YARD. That's the number 5 then yard, and you'll get free shipping and 20% off. I couldn't recommend it more. It's been brilliant in terms of using it. I'm blessed to have one, and I recommend it for anyone to use. So moving on from there to today's guest. Don't know how you follow up from a read like that, but here we go. Very good friend of mine, playing a lot of leagues together, playing the Kings Classic together. We play in the Dynasty League that Justin Boone set up, and we play in a few more. But my good friend Lewis is here. So if you don't know Lewis, he's the writing recruiter for DLF and director of fantasy football at the Vault Studio in Australia, plus also host of the Draft Studs podcast. And he's also behind the FF Down Under Bowl, which has just kicked off this weekend. Lewis, welcome back to 5 Yard Rush. It's been too long. How you been, man?
Murph, it has been too long. Thank you so much for bringing me back on. And I'm just in an hour ahead of you in time zone now as well, so it's made it a lot easier to jump back on. That's all it took. Me coming over to your neck of the woods to get something sorted out. It's glad to be on. But mate, I tell you what. First of all, congratulations on getting a big sponsor for 5 Yard Rush like Manscaped. That's fantastic. I was starting to sweat for a minute because when you held up the lawnmower and said I've just used it, I thought we were about to get a bit of a a sample of your fruits of your labor as well. I was like, bloody hell, don't need to be seeing that on the video stream. But glad it was kept all above board. But yeah, congratulations on the sponsorship. And yeah, it's great to be back here on 5 Yard Rush with just you, the skeleton crew. So maybe we call it 2 Yard Rush for this episode.
The Caleb Ballard Rush.
Yeah.
1.6 yards per carry, I think.
That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah. I mean, it's been an interesting ride without stocks for the last few weeks, but we've had some great guests on, and you follow that tradition. And as you mentioned, you're in the European Zone, so you do live in Australia. I have to tell people all the time when I do talk about you probably far too much. Almost everyone I know knows who you are. That you're not Australian. That you are.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah. So you're FF Down Under on Twitter because you live down under, not because you're actually from down under.
Sums it up nicely. Although they I am fortunate. Well, I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunate at this moment in time, but I do have Australian citizenship and a passport because my mum was born in Australia, which has caused some issues trying to travel and leave the country in recent months, as I'm sure everyone is starting to notice now with all of the world's news media focused on the devolving situation in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously a lot going on down there. You're in Central Europe at the moment, so hopefully things not too bad there. And basically from where you are, obviously you're in a country that hosted the Euros, and it looked great when they hosted the Euros. Definitely, I think my favorite destination because it was the only place in the Euros that had full crowd, didn't it? Full capacity.
Yeah, full capacity crowd. I was Yeah, again, I watched the final. Unfortunately, let's not talk about the result, but I did watch a final in in the fan zones in the city, which was really cool. There was a large number of Italian people around as well, which made things a little bit more difficult. And it seemed like all the neutrals were cheering for Italy as well. But nonetheless, it was great to be around for it. And I was hoping to be able to get to the World Cup qualifier in a couple of weeks' time, because England is playing Hungary in Budapest, but unfortunately those tickets sold out at a rapid rate. So it'll be watching on a big screen somewhere in the city with a few beers in hand.
Well, you never know what might happen last minute. You never know, someone might not be able to go. There might be a ticket
It's
in the last
true.
minute.
That's true.
What's going on. Keep your ears to the ground, and maybe you'll pick one up. You just never know. I alluded to it at the start. You kicked off the FF Down Under Bowl this weekend, and Friday night here, Saturday morning in Australia and wherever else it was in any other time zones. How's it been in terms of this year? Because I think this is the third year you've been doing it, or fourth year?
Third. I think this is year 3. Yeah, I mean, we've grown every year. I set myself an ambitious target this year. Didn't quite reach it, but we went from 240 teams to 300-ish teams. I've forgotten the exact number, but it's around the 300 mark. I think we've got 26 divisions. So you can do the quick math there if you want, or 296 teams or something like that. It's been great. Obviously, when you have a large format like that, you're going to have teething problems with people not realizing that the draft is starting despite sending 63 emails out. People, not being able to operate my fantasy league. Now, I'm going to say I love the guys over at my fantasy league because they support the FF Down Under Bowl every single year. They don't take a cent for it. It's a premium platform, so it's very good of them to do that. They have the best customer service. They always respond to your tickets very, very quickly and help you out. Yes, their UI is probably not the most modern and can take a second to get used to, but my goodness, people complain about it like they're launching a rocket ship to Mars. If you can't, after 5 minutes, work out MFL, stop eating with a fork because you're a danger to yourself. It's really not that difficult. And then when you send an email to everyone with, okay, this is how you do this is how you do that, and then you still get questions, I'm all for, fielding questions and helping people out, but holy crap, it's been a trying few days and chasing everyone. And I understand everyone's excited to draft and you've got to move them along. So it's just been a lot of that. As I said, I tweeted out a little while ago, it is like herding cats, trying to find people, let people know, well, this person's probably asleep, because it's you know this struggle, Murph, running leagues with people from all over the world. So, however, my old man bitching and moaning aside, because I am very fortunate that many people want to sign up and play in this league, and there's a lot of enthusiasm there. So, A, very grateful for that, and be very grateful for everyone's financial support, because this year was the first time that we went 100% of proceeds to charity. In previous years, we carved out a portion for a prize pool to incentivize people to play for some cash. This year, I decided 100% is going to go to charity. This year we've supported a charity called the Smith Family in Australia, which is a large foundation that works to help children get everything they need for education, helps children in poverty get to school, get their uniforms, books, presents at Christmas time, all that sort of stuff. And then last year, after the bushfires, we supported Food Bank Australia, who were helping out a lot of people who were doing it tough after the fires. And then this year, the second charity is Epilepsy Action Australia, which helps families with funding for equipment, epilepsy nurses, respite, etc., for people with epilepsy. So, I think we're closing on the $4,000 mark. So the fact that people are just putting their hands in their pocket to donate with no prize money has just been awesome, especially as well, given charitable donations have just been down generally because of COVID. It's been a tough year for a lot of people. A lot of people have not had the disposable cash that they might have, where they've been stood down from work, furloughed, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of people have had a tough time. So for people to come out and put their hand in their pocket, donate, contribute, and support the initiative, is fantastic. So we're closing at the $4,000 mark. Couldn't be happier.
just unbelievable. I mean, mad respect for doing it. I run on quite a lot of people with the FFCC year 3 as well. We started the same year you did, so appreciate the struggles. And yeah, I always try and talk to people about MFL because it's like, I understand it's not pretty to look at. I understand there's no app. I understand that most people in Europe, I think it's very much a European thing, that they're used to just drafting on their phones. It's what people do. I understand that. I understand that Sleeper is probably the prettiest user interface that you're ever going to have, and I get that. But I just think with MFL, if you can get your head around the fact that you just have to do it a little bit differently, it is so much better. I would play all my leagues on MFL if I could. Obviously,
if you could, yeah.
And I think the teething problems is, it's just one of those things, isn't it? People forget they signed up a long time ago.
Yeah, of course.
But I think what you do is amazing. You've raised so much money for charity for these wonderful courses that have been hit. What's the format for this year? I mean, I know because I'm in it, but what is the format for this year? And then also on top, where can people who are watching this and might not have had a chance to play this year, but maybe can register for next year, or can at least even donate to support the causes that you're doing?
For sure. So all the information is very simple, fantasyfootballdownunder.com. So if you're interested in reading more about the league, all of the rules, the playoff structure is all going to be there. I'll also be, when we get to that time of the season, posting the playoff results there as well. And the way it works, Murph, is, or the format, it's Superflex, it's tight end premium, 18-round draft, and then it's just waivers through the season. Like Scott Fishbowl, like a lot of the other large format charity leagues, there's no trades. People often ask why. A, it's to make everyone's life easier, to make it a more manageable league for you to sign up in and just play for fun, to raise funds for charity. B, what a nightmare, commissioner's nightmare, trying to navigate and coordinate and the trades that would go down with 300 plus teams, trying to keep on top of it all. So admin purposes as well is the other reason for it. And the way it works this year, again, leaning on and borrowing ideas from Mr. Scott Fish, is once a team, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I think if a team gets 9 wins, 9 wins, they're guaranteed, regardless of where they finish, to make it through to the playoffs. And then the division winner gets through. I'm just terrible. I've rejigged it for this year. Anyway, the point being is, once you make it through to the playoffs in the criteria that I did set out and really did think about, just escaping my mind at the moment, it then goes to an all-play format, right, where you just teams score. You get your points in week 13, week 14, week 15, whatever round of the playoffs you're playing in, and a portion of the low-scoring teams are cut off from the bottom, and the high scorers move on, and that field is just whittled down each week till you get the last number in week 17, which is when the final round is.
Yeah, I love your competition, right? So I'm blessed enough to play every year, and I think for me, because it's always the last charity event of the season, so like for me, that's when I start to get really excited, because Scott Fish Bowl kind of starts the fantasy season.
Right.
Your charity league is typically end of August, always sort of has been, and kind of brings the curtain down on fantasy season for me. You might still draft in a home league on a live draft, but you're pretty much kind of done when the FF Down Under draft. I did get burned a couple of years ago when I drafted Andrew Luck, and then 3 hours later he was retired.
Man, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, that was the ultimate meltdown on Twitter, and it's grown so much since then. I'm trying to think what other kind of news could happen. It was insane. The Tom Brady leaving New England news didn't come close to it. My phone nearly melted in my pocket. Granted, it was a hot day in Australia, but the trade offers were coming in, text messages, group chats blowing up, Twitter notifications, emails. Everyone was just the reaction was off the charts.
It was nuts. Like I remember drafting him in the FF Down Under Bowl. I went to bed. I woke up because I had a very young child at that age. He was weeks old, I think maybe 3 weeks old. And I woke up at like 3 a.m, and then I've just seen this breaking news on Twitter, and I was just like, Well, you might as well throw this draft in the bin. This one's over because I drafted it early. I think it was like
early.
the third round.
Well, that's the thing, because that week he was coming back from his shoulder injury, and everyone was freaking out. Because it was right. He's progressed from a golf ball this week to a tennis ball to a pee-wee football to a college football, and it was like, okay, he's building up and started to look good, and then he was going to play in the preseason. I was like, okay, we're golden. Let's draft Andrew Luck, and then, wow.
Yeah, that was that wasn't fun. But in the flip side, this year, I'm hoping nothing like that happens and we can just avoid it. But it's a great competition. Definitely check out the website if you haven't played before. Sign up for next year. Donate to the causes. Even if you're not in it, you can still donate to the causes. You can still get involved. In fact, do you know what? If you donate $10 to the cause, I will send across a copy of the Fantasy Football Playbook digital copy to the first 10 people that do it. So if you don't have a digital copy of the playbook and you donate $10 to Lewis's charity, I will send me the confirmation via Twitter. Handle's just here on the screen. Or it's at Murph_NFL if you're listening to the podcast. Send me the confirmation, and I will send a digital copy of the playbook to you, and you can enjoy that and it's basically cheaper than paying for it through the website because
it's about £6 is 10 Australian dollars at the moment, maybe even less. So it's a discount. You do something good and you get a great fantasy resource as well with the playbook. So appreciate that, Murph. That's very kind.
Now listen, we want to raise as much money as we can. We've got our own charities. Everyone's trying to support charities this year. So whatever I can do to help, I'm more than happy to. So the first 10 people can take me up on that. Let's talk preseason. We're not far away from the regular season. Week 2 preseason in the books. And we're starting to see some skill players make some plays. We're starting to see some pieces of the puzzle coming together. Mm-hmm. So let's have a look at what are your main takeaways so far from the preseason and anything to really sort of zero in on for this draft season.
Yeah, obviously at this point of the year, everyone is starved for football and it becomes overreaction central. Every clip is overanalyzed. Oh, this guy could do something. Let's dial it down, people. Let's remember, because we didn't have preseason last year. Let's think about 2 years ago, the preseason stars. Most of the time, they don't work out, or they end up on the roster bubble, or they become special teams guys. They're very, very deep league sort of contributors. So for the overwhelming majority of fantasy football leagues, we're not too concerned with a lot of the action. The thing that I'm looking for most for fantasy purposes, especially in week 2, because we have this truncated preseason now under the new CBA, we only have 3 games, looking for usage of first team players in the first drive, first quarter, first half, however the head coach is going to manage that, and also who's not playing. If someone is completely out and being held out of reps, and obviously a lot of the big stars are, but we can just be even that more confident about the type of role that they're going to have in with the offense. And then, of course, with the rookies, you just want to see, okay, are they up to NFL speed? Do they look okay? Do they appear not to be out of their depth and things like that? So usage is one. And then the other thing that I've really taken away from the preseason so far and really enjoyed is how good all of the quarterbacks these young quarterbacks coming through. And I'm going to give Tua Tagovailoa a mulligan on and basically give him a redshirt rookie season, because he was coming off such a traumatic hip injury. So between him, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, we look like we've got some very, very good quarterbacks coming in. Justin Fields is electricity, and Matt Nagy should be, tarred and feathered at the 50-yard line for suggesting that Andy Dalton, I know he's one of your ginger brethren, Murph, but there's no way that Andy Dalton should be starting week 1 for the Chicago Bears. However, it has been very encouraging to see these young quarterbacks come in, because we have good quarterback classes, we have bad classes, we have a mix. And obviously people like to talk about the statistics of, well, it's only likely 2 quarterbacks from the draft class are going to be good. And it was, well, which one of these quarterbacks is going to be the bust? It doesn't always have to be that way, because we have quarterback classes that are catastrophes where none of the quarterbacks are good. So the numbers even out over time. So this is at first glance looking like it's going to be one of the better quarterback classes in recent memory. So that's been exciting to see, because when quarterback play is good, the league is doing well. Football's more exciting to watch, and it's great for fantasy as well if we've got plenty of good, competent NFL quarterbacks that can support all of these skill position players that we care so deeply about.
Yeah, I completely agree. This class for me is very similar to the 2018 class, although for me the only difference was there was a standout in this class, that was Trevor Lawrence, hence why he went 1 overall. Whereas in 2018 there wasn't a standout, there were just 4, potentially 5 very good quarterbacks. Okay, I know Josh Rosen hasn't panned out for whatever reason, but the other 4, I mean, you're looking at Baker Mayfield has taken the Browns to the playoffs and ended one of the longest stints. And I know he's not the most exciting quarterback, and I've bashed him for being a game manager, but he's good enough to get teams into playoffs. I'm not convinced he wins the Lombardi. You never know, but he's good enough to get the Browns to the playoffs. You have to dog your cap. Sam Darnold, I think, will surprise a lot of people this year who are prepared to write him off. I think now he's away from Adam Gase and he's now with Joe Brady. I expect a decent year. I'm not expecting him to be like top 10 in the league, but I do think he's going to have a good year. You're looking at Josh Allen, who everybody just decided to write off, and last season he was at times an MVP candidate. You had Lamar Jackson, who's won an MVP, and I think you look at this class, and I think you're looking at a very similar sort of depth there with Lawrence, with Fields, with Lance, even Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson's the one that I think has probably surprised me the most. Not because I think he was bad, because I didn't think he was bad at all. I just think considering how much he missed because of this holdout and all this other sort of business that was going on with his contract and all the side stuff that seems to be all this noise around Zach Wilson with his mother and his father and all this other stuff that we don't really need to focus on that isn't important. He seems to possess for me a maturity which I didn't think he necessarily had. I didn't know he had. I think the way he's handled the situation and being a QB there, I think he's done really well this preseason for me. And I think Jets fans will feel, I don't want to say confident, but I think they'll feel a lot better having seen him on the field and having seen him put together some plays and some throws. And I think he looks good. I think you're right about Fields. I don't think he starts week 1, but Lance was Lance. He's just always going to produce highlights. And surprisingly, the one that's been very quiet is Lawrence.
Yeah. It's funny how it works, right? He was the one with the most hype coming in, the generational talent, the Andrew Luck comparisons, all worthy, but it has been quiet. And I think that's going to change, right? Because we've only seen a few snaps because Jacksonville play their second preseason game tonight, 1 a.m. UK time. And at some point, I'd love to get your thoughts on the New Orleans Saints battle with your old man Jameis Winston. You think he can pull ahead tonight and get it done?
No,
really.
I don't even think it's him. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago that for me, that Saints battle all trends towards Taysom Hill. And
he is the coach's son, so it's always going to be a difficult bridge to cross.
Do you know what? I think Jameis could go out there tonight. I think Jameis out there could throw 15 for 15 for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it wouldn't make a difference. And I think the reason why is you have to look at what is available to the New Orleans Saints right now. Right? You look at where Jameis' strengths and weaknesses are. His strengths are the deep ball. His strength is, extending plays, making things happen. Yes, he makes a lot of turnovers. So I think they could all get corrected with correct coaching, etc. The problem is with the New Orleans Saints is there's no one out there who's going to make those plays. You're relying on Callaway, Harris, and Traquan Smith to make those kind of plays. You're just setting Jameis out there to fail your team because you need competent receivers who are good at the deep ball. It's changing the whole philosophy too much. I think if Thomas was there, I think they would have risked it because I think they know he can make plays. They haven't signed it. I mean, I'm not calling Chris Hogan a signing. I don't care what anyone says. That's not a signing. He was playing lacrosse this time last year. So let's not get excited about Chris Hogan. He's not a thing. that's why I just think it's going to be a massively run-heavy offense. I think they're just going to keep it simple. They're going to use Taysom. They might rotate some Winston in there to use Hill on other plays.
Yeah.
But I think you're looking at Murray. I think you're looking at Kamara. I think they might use the tight end quite a bit, Troutman. I don't see this big play. They might use Jameis on some gadget plays. I do think that when they resolve this situation, whatever they're going to do, then I think Winston can play himself into contentions. I started this preseason thinking Winston's going to win the job. It's not going to be a contest. But the Michael Thomas thing, I think, is just massively scuppered that for me, because you're relying on Traquan Smith, Marcus Callaway, and Deontay Harris. That could
There's
be
not it's not a lot there. It's certainly a candidate to be the worst receiving room in football.
I think for me that's the worst wide receiving room in football. And I think when you've got a quarterback who already has at times an accuracy issue, you need a receiver to give him confidence to make plays. And he doesn't have that. And I just think that you're reaching too much. And I think you're going to ask him to do. He's going to look at that situation. You're an FSU supporter. You've seen this from Winston. Winston wants to do it all. He wants to be the hero. He wants to be this guy who's going to just put on the cape and say, don't worry, I'm going to take you to the promised land. And that's where he gets into trouble, because he's got all the talent. He's got all the talent. I definitely think that Jameis Winston, with the right coaching and the right environment, could be a top 10 QB in this league. No doubt in my mind. And I think he's got the right coach, Don't
he's
John Payton too much, but I don't think the weapons are there right now. Now, listen, if they bring in someone via a trade, it's cut week. Might be a couple of receivers who get cut. There might be something going on. There might be a trade. There might be something. We'll see what happens. But right now, with that receiver room, I can't see Winston getting a shot until maybe Thomas comes back. And then we don't even know what's going to happen with Thomas. He could get traded. It's just that whole situation's a mess. So I think Taysom wins the job. I don't think through any skill, or I think that he's the better QB. I just purely think that the situation with what they've got talent-wise, he will work best for what they need in the intermediary.
Yeah, it's a perfectly well-reasoned and thought-out position to have. And I don't have a huge lean one way or the other. Just talking about it, and I'm always going to ride with Jameis, and we haven't seen really much of Trevor Lawrence either. I'm thinking about maybe after this going and have a kip, and then waking up and watching some of the preseason live, because I'm a mad bastard like that. So I might do that for sure, because I'm getting excited now about this QB battle and seeing how it unfolds and seeing how Jameis looks.
So let me bring this over to you. I'm going to swerve from the show seat for a second, right? So Warren Sharp put out a tweet earlier, and he asked about 5 teams and their week 1 starters, right? So he asked about New England, San Francisco, Chicago, New Orleans, and that's a good question. Who was the 5th?
You said Chicago.
Yeah, I said Chicago, San Francisco.
Was it Jacksonville?
No, it wasn't Jacksonville. It'd be so obvious once I see it. It's going to annoy me.
Tampa Bay, quarterback controversy brewing down there.
Denver.
Of course.
Denver. So who starts week 1 for? Let's start with Broncos. Who starts week 1 for the Broncos?
Teddy Bridgewater.
I couldn't agree more. I think
it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater, and then they're going to get pissed off with the lack of downfield, attempts, and they're going to be going, we've got KJ Hamler, we've got Cortland Sutton, let's get Drew Lock back out there and see if we can't figure this out. But I reckon like halfway through week 2 or week 3, they go, okay, let's see what Drew can give us. So I think it's Teddy Bridgewater week 1, and the offense doesn't do all that much with him. We've seen what he is. He is a pure game manager. However, having said that, some of the players that they've got are set up for that kind of quarterback play. With, Noah Fant is a yards after catch monster at the tight end position. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, just get him the ball and watch him fly. Tim Patrick. Let's not pretend that Courtland Sutton's only skill set is, just downfield contested 50-50 balls. He's dominant at that because of his size, his frame, his ability to track the football, concentration. But he is a polished receiver. It's more of a question for the, is he 100% healthy at this point? It's a bit more wait and see. So I think that could be an interesting one in Denver, particularly because they do, arguably have the best defense in football, or at least top three defense there. It's always difficult for teams to go into Denver to play at the altitude. I think a good defensive coordinator, though, will be able to beat them with Teddy Bridgewater's limitations and have them playing out in front of them, wrap up the ball carrier, and just limit them to sort of field goal opportunities, slow moving the ball, try and run the football, and play game clock, sort of control the football type defense against them. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is the starter. I do think Drew Lock will get his opportunity though, because John Elway will not let the dream die.
See, I just think Teddy might have the job most of the season until he gets injured. I just think when I think of Vic Fangio and I think about his coaching style, he just wants someone who turns up and does the job. He doesn't care how they do it. Doesn't want to be flash. But we'll see. Let's move on to San Fran. Yep. Who starts week 1?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. How long do you reckon he lasts?
3 weeks. Jimmy G is made of glass. I like Jimmy G. He's made of glass. So there's every chance he gets hurt and Trey Lance usurps the job in that manner. But we've seen the highs from Trey Lance so far. We've seen some lows. Rookie taking too many sacks, thinking he can bail out of every play and play that little bit of hero ball. So that's going to piss Shanahan off for sure. I think Jimmy G will start, and they've got plenty of weapons to get them through the first few weeks, and with a positive record. So I think Jimmy G probably holds that job off longer, but he will not keep it for the whole season.
Nah, I'm with you. I think week 4, week 5. I think it depends on their record. Don't get me wrong. I think if they're 5-0, they'll roll with Jimmy G until things go south. I don't expect that to happen. But I think, if they've got a couple of losses by week 4, maybe they might turn the Trey Lance before the bye week. Maybe they hand it over to him. The bye week's week 6, maybe week 7. They might give it to Lance. I think you'll see similar to what we saw with the Ryan Fitzpatrick to Tua kind of exchange and handover. I think it will look very similar. New Orleans, I told you my view. What's yours? Yeah. Take the personal feeling out of it, because that's what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I still, gun to my head, I think they're going to go with Winston, because in my heart, I believe playing the best quarterback gives you the best chance to win football games. And we both agree he's the better quarterback talent. But there's no doubt in my mind Taysom Hill will be used heavily, and we may see both of them on the field at the same time. We'll see Taysom Hill come in for a series. We'll see him come in at goal line packages. So it could be. So as the starter, I think you see Jameis Winston. He's out there with the first snap, but it could be as much as a 60-40 offensive snap timeshare, or at least overlap where Hill is playing 30+% of the snaps.
Yeah,
but I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked at all. So I don't have a strong feeling either way. I'm just leaning on the fact that a great offensive mind would probably want the better quarterback talent out there. But like you said, there's such a dearth of receiving options that he might feel the best way for them to win is to really gadget it up, lean on Kamara, lean on Latavius Murray, and lean on Taysom Hill running the football. So
I think Latavius Murray is just an absolute steal in drafts right now, because
absolutely.
I just think the way they're going to run that, Kamara can't do it all on his own. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, given the poor receiving options. You might even see Kamara line out wide. It wouldn't even shock me.
No, I mean he does it from time. He did it from time to time anyway. It would not shock me at all to see him, to see both of those backs on the field at once and have Latavius lining up as your traditional halfback with Latavius Murray with Alvin Kamara lining up as a wide receiver.
Yeah, and so then we go to Chicago. where are you leaning week 1 and then change through the season?
Yeah, Matt Nagy's been so consistent and certain with his rhetoric, and that Andy's the guy, and he's going to play it safe. And the other thing as well is the longer he keeps Justin Fields in his back pocket, the longer he has to not get fired. And
yeah, I mean, listen, Matt Nagy is Matt Nagy, right? The Matt Nagy experience is one that's predictable, fairly boring, but he wins football games with mediocre talent. And you have to dock your cap to, it's not a kind of skill that I enjoy or willfully cheer on, but you have to begrudgingly respect it, that he's taken Chicago to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years that he's been in charge. All right, one of them was an 8-8, but it doesn't matter. You're in. Yes, they got pummeled when they got there, but
exactly
at the end of the day, with what he had to work with last season to get them to 8-8 and to the playoffs, I would say it was a minor miracle. I just think he goes with Dalton. I think Pace is the one that's in trouble. I don't think.
Oh, Pace is 100% in trouble. He's been an absolute donkey.
Oh yeah,
as a GM. I mean, congratulations, you drafted Justin Fields. Bravo.
I mean that was an absolute no-brainer from where you were on the board and what it cost you to do it. It was pretty straightforward. But yeah, I mean, bringing in Nick Foles was daft.
Bringing in Nick Foles, bringing in Glennon, bringing in Andy Dalton, 3 heinous mistakes. The Khalil Mack trade was probably the only reason that's not made to look worse is because Mayock and Gruden are bigger donkeys in Vegas and have frittered away all of the first round picks they got in exchange for Khalil Mack.
Well, did you hear today or last night, the Raiders have phoned up and asked about getting Mack back?
I mean, honestly, if I'm Ryan Pace, I'm thinking about it. I really am. I'm like, get that contract off the books.
If I'm Ryan Pace, I'm going to my nearest Blockbuster video, but obviously they're gone. I'd go to my nearest streaming device. I would watch Draft Day. I would recite all the lines of Draft Day to the point where I literally was like, give me all those picks and throw in David Putney too, because they will feel like it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and if he did it, I think fair play. That's what I would do if I was Ryan Pace. But yeah, maybe I think Dalton starts 4 or 5, maybe even 6 weeks. Again, depends how they start. If they lose 4 games, then I think they'll throw Fields.
Yeah, so do I. The fans will be baying for it. If they stall on their first drive and go 3 and out, that's it. The Chicago fans will be calling for Fields immediately because they've seen the flashes, they've seen the electricity, they've seen the arm talent, they've seen the off-balance throws, they've seen the throws on the run, they've seen his ability to process reads quickly. Everything that you want in a top-tier modern-day quarterback is in the Justin Fields package, which is why it's so egregious to me he would consider starting Andy Dalton, because we know what he is. He was for years, he was the Dalton Mendoza line. That was it. He was the definition of whether you had a franchise quarterback or not. And nobody knew whether Andy Dalton was because of the shitty circumstances he found himself in Cincinnati. We probably know now that he was not the franchise quarterback. He had a good run for a while. He put together a couple of respectable seasons for sure. He's made a good career for himself. But I think his time has passed. It's Justin Fields' time. But yeah, I take your point about Ryan Pace hamstringing what Matt Nagy can do with the roster. Some of the decisions they've made, retaining Jimmy Graham at the cost of losing Kyle Fuller, giving Jimmy Graham a no trade clause. Like, what a collection of these bizarre tight ends on their roster. It's just ludicrous. The management and decision making is insane. And it was just confirmed yesterday yesterday or today on Part of My Take. They interviewed Mitchell Trubisky. And he said he found out through the television he was being picked by the Bears. There was no pre-draft phone call. He had no clue. He had one meeting with them. And Ryan Pace was like, this is my guy. They didn't tell anyone. They traded up when they didn't need to get him. It's just a comedy of errors from the moment he came in and hilariously got given GM of the year because he traded for Khalil Mack and then put him in an elite talented stacked defense that Vic Fangio ran roughshod over the rest of the NFL, carried the shitty offense into the playoffs, and then they got let down by the double doink. So I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm ragging on Chicago Bears. I think they're a cool organization. They're storied. They've got great history. I love Allen Robinson, one of my favorite receivers. But it's and then you go and look at what Trubisky just did, albeit in the preseason for Buffalo against Chicago. Hello, revenge game. He looked electric. And there were times, and I was laughed at a few times for touting Trubisky as a fantasy option because he was athletic, he had wheels, and there were times when you go, okay, you can see what's going on here, but the play calling, the decision making around him was so bad. And Josh Allen stunk it up as well. And then they went, okay, how can we fix this? Let's surround him with offensive line talent. Let's go and get him the best deep threat in football in Stephon Diggs, or one of the best deep threats in football. Statistically, was the year they traded for him. And let's get some analytical, aggressive thinking that matches with Allen's skill set. Let's be aggressive on first down. Let's let him pass the football. And Brian Dable's been a sensation. If Mitchell Trubisky had landed in a spot like that with a competent organization, making competent decisions from management down to play calling, his career could have panned out completely differently. And I hope he goes on to have a great career maybe as a backup for a few years in Buffalo, and then someone else takes a shot on him because, he certainly looked like a competent NFL quarterback, albeit in the preseason.
Yeah, I just worry about the mental side and the maturity side of Trubisky, but the ability, I wouldn't question as much as the maturity and the way that he carries himself. I think at times is a little bit young, and I think he has some growing up to do, and I think maybe he will do that. And I think Josh Allen is someone who you could argue is probably very similar coming into the league, but he somehow, and again, I think this is where you're right about coaching an organization. An organization pulled Josh Allen to one side after year one and said, hey, listen, some of those antics and things, they're not going to fly. You need an easy life. And that is low profile, head down, let your football do the talking. Someone needs to do that to Baker Mayfield, quite frankly, because these quarterbacks who come in and just get on with the job and do the right things and follow the right processes are the ones that are successful. So, and I hope that this class, and it seems to me that most of this class, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, they haven't caused the kind of stir that a rookie would cause in doing some boneheaded thing in camp or saying something stupid or flashing their cash too much. They seem, the one thing I'll say about this class is they all five of them very much seem like their heads are screwed on. Even Mac Jones. I mean, people don't like Mac Jones. I don't really get why I like Mac Jones. I think
Mac Jones looked good. Mac Jones has looked good in his limited opportunities.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think he wins the job this year, but I think he has a future as that franchise QB. I can see him and Belichick working for a few years because I just think Mac Jones is that sort of chip on the shoulder. I was the fifth guy taken. I'm not going to stand for this. And he's going to give it with that kind of quiet attitude, but with the commitment to play the way that he needs to play. Your thoughts on New England? Do you think, how long do you reckon Cam has the job this year?
Again, Cam has, from what I've seen so far, he's looked quite good, and he gives you an obvious different dimension to the offense that Mac Jones doesn't give you. And Cam, after he got COVID and banged up his shoulder again, he looked dreadful last year. He looked like he should never be near an NFL field again. However, I was always of the mindset that, well, he had a virtual offseason coming into a new team, rehabbing a shoulder injury, then lost time due to COVID and was not able to then pick up the weekly evolution of the playbook, the new installations. It was all gone. And when he came back, the rest of the offense was doing something different to what he was doing. And that was visible to anyone who watched the New England Patriots play. But there were the first few weeks of the season. He was excellent against Seattle and was one play away from winning that game at the goal line and was stuffed on the goal line. It happens. He then nearly put them in a position to beat the Buffalo Bills on the road, and again was making a huge play and a great hit, dislodged the ball, caused a fumble, game over. But again, he played well that game. And so him going away, being brought back on another contract extension, I believe it was, having Mac Jones there as a first round pick to sort of maybe light a bit of a fire underneath him, but to have the benefit of the experience, more comfort within the system, get him a few more players as well. Now, say what you want about Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, Hunt Henry, Jonnu Smith. It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade on what was there last year.
N'Keal Harry looks good.
And then he banged up his shoulder. I don't think N'Keal Harry makes the roster, if I'm honest. I think, yeah. Or he doesn't get much. He might not get much play time. But regardless, right? N'Keal Harry or no N'Keal Harry, Cam Newton has certainly looked better. And from a fantasy perspective, he's been one of the absolute steals in best ball drafts, superflex leagues, redraft leagues, dynasty. It's like, yeah, whatever. We don't know how long he's got left as a starting quarterback, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him play a couple more years. And last year could not have been worse from a passing perspective. I mean, it was horrendous. And yet he was still a QB2 because he's the goal line back. He was just jamming in touchdowns constantly. He's got more touchdowns since he came into the league, rushing touchdowns, than any other player. He's an absolute monster at the goal line, and he's still effective at that. Now, you got him some receivers. You've got him a very good field stretcher in Nelson Aguilar that will make a difference because everything was crashing down on the Patriots last year. They had no one to stretch the field. And then Cam was struggling with velocity on his throws and timing anyway. And then add on top of that, the defense had no respect for getting anyone deep. And so we're just defensive backs were just jamming down on the receivers immediately and were not able to get any looks in space. I think I'm not predicting this high octane offense or anything like that. It's still going to be run the ball, slow, methodical, play action, but it's going to be better than what it was last year. And the defense is going to be much improved as well. And I do think Cam Newton represents some excellent fantasy value particularly as your QB2 or rotational quarterback in superflex leagues, because he's like QB in the QB 20s at the moment.
Yeah, he's so low.
And he's never finished there. He's never finished there. Even in his worst possible season with the Patriots, with no offensive weapons around him, he still was a mid-end QB2, QB 16 or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. My only thing on Cam is, and this isn't even a negative on Cam, is that playoff schedule, fantasy playoff schedule is pretty ropey. And that's probably the only knock I've got on him. But yeah, I'm quite happily taking him as my QB4 in a superflex league just to paper over the cracks, and you never know what might happen. It's just an option because he's basically free. We're going to talk tight ends. We've had Graham Barfield talk about running backs. We've had Justin Boone come on and talk about midfield wide receivers and how we break those down. And tight ends is a position that I get a lot of crap for because, to be honest, I just think for fantasy football, it's a pretty irrelevant position without a premium. And so I have constantly been scolded for my negativity towards tight ends. And I should caveat this by saying that I love tight ends in real football. I think they're a massively important position. I absolutely love watching tight ends play. I just think in fantasy football, I don't really care because it doesn't matter unless you draft Travis Kelce. But we'll get to that. Let's overarch this whole discussion. We've got about 15 minutes left and talk about this approach to tight ends and just think redraft strategy, maybe even a bit of dynasty strategy here. Let's look at just the overall in a 1 QB or 2 QB, doesn't really matter. What are you doing with tight end in terms of your strategy towards it? How would you attack the position from a roster construction perspective and where you would be looking to put value? And then we'll go through some of the options and say, I'd consider them at this price or not.
Yeah, for sure. I would say in managed roster leagues, so your typical redraft leagues, I'm out on Travis Kelce at his price, just because at the back end of the draft there, I prefer to double dip at running back typically. The only other tight end I would consider at a true premium is, well, actually, there's not two. There's two names I would consider here. One of them is Darren Waller. And we can talk a bit more about him. And then the other one, because his price has come down, I think people have forgotten how good he is because of a down year, is Mark Andrews. If they don't get any of those guys, I don't care about anyone else really in the middle. Now, you could talk to me about TJ Hawkinson. You could talk to me maybe about Logan Thomas if the value is right. But Goddard, Fant, Tunyon, Higbee, Henry, some other names in there, that Kyle Pitt, I'm not in at the moment. I'm then doing a platoon of later round guys. And the one guy I've drafted everywhere this year, and again, then you know how the fantasy football community just loves to overreact one way or the other. Yeah. The guy who represents to me the biggest steal in drafts, considering I think on a weekly basis he's basically going to be a set and forget, and you can get him about a tight end 17, I believe, at the moment, is Evan Ingram from the Giants.
No.
Yes. No. Yes.
No. I can't.
He will finish easily as a top 8 tight end this year, maybe even top 6. His opportunity is through the roof. It has been since he came in the league as a rookie. Last year, if he just met his expected fantasy points, he would have been tight end 6 on a points per game basis. It was a differential of 2 fantasy points per game. The offense absolutely.
Why didn't he reach that?
Because he had some drops. He had some drops, and the offense was really, really bad. Now,
there's two issues with Evan Ingram. One, you've just mentioned, is the drops. The two, has he ever played an entire season?
Maybe not. But I'm not a an injury guru, and none of the injury people I follow have been like Evan Ingram, red flag. Yeah. So. And the reality is, at the cost you're drafting him, it doesn't matter if he misses a few games.
Oh, yeah. I grant you might as well.
And he 100 targets is well within his range of outcomes, because they brought in Kenny Golladay. Who is fine, is a good wide receiver, but he's been banged up a little bit of a hamstring injury. Kadarius Toney, don't even get me started, and then Sterling Shepard, fine. Darius Slayton, No, and then Saquon Barkley's coming back. I think the offense overall is going to be better. Mm-hmm. I think they've made a little bit of improvement in the offensive line. So all it takes is, a couple of extra touchdowns for Ingram, and for him to not drop quite so many passes. And, I don't care about Deontay Johnson's drops. I didn't care about Amari Cooper's drops. I can't care about Evan Ingram's drops either. So I think he represents a tremendous value at his ADP. That's where I'm at. And I'm pairing him with like Jonnu Smith. I'm pairing him with some other later round guys, if that's the way I'm going at the position, if I haven't spent up earlier to get one of the guys. But these mid-round guys are just tight end purgatory, and I'm not going to hang out there.
Right, so you and me are completely on the same page, right? So I'm exactly with you that for me, I'm not drafting anyone in the middle rounds. I don't care. I don't like how my roster turns out. I don't like any of the tight ends I get in that range. And I've yet to see a tight end in that range actually perform to their ADP. So in years. And I know we should go with the whole, just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it can't happen now. It just hasn't. I just go with trends. And until that trend is broken, I'm going to stay away. So I'm with you. Let's go through them. So you're saying you're out on Kelsey at, ADP 8-9. So back end of the first round. And is that because you just don't like the way that your roster is built, or you just don't think he returns that sort of value?
Oh, no, I completely think he returns value. And in best ball leagues, I'm more inclined to do it, because once you get Travis Kelsey, that's it. You're done at the tight end position, except for maybe one more pick a little bit later on. Tight end premium, 100% taking him there. I drafted him in the down under ball to get that premium. I just prefer the way my roster construction comes out in roster managed leagues with no tight end premium. But if someone wants to go that way, I've got absolutely no issue with it, because there's all the analysis in the world has been done by very intelligent analysts, far more smart, more intelligent and smarter than I am, who show that Travis Kelsey returns value over the replaceability of others at his position. It's just that because, and it's the same with quarterback, because it's a onesie position, I'm less inclined to do so, because there's always going to be tight ends available later on that I can platoon and over the course of the season probably get myself the equivalent of tight end 5.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you 100%. I get that. I'll do it every now and again. I won't make it a rule, but sometimes I think...
Yeah, sometimes it's fun to take Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, but I'm with you, and exactly the same way. I don't always love the way that my roster comes out, and again, the onesie position, I'm with you. Darren Waller is going back end of the second round. Now, you're saying he's someone you would consider. I take it you're
Yeah.
probably not considering at that price.
I really like Darren Waller, and he's going to be the offense for Las Vegas this season. He's going to be absolutely peppered with targets. And over the past few seasons, since he became the starting tight end, he and Kelsey with receptions and yardage are basically lockstep. It's obviously just the touchdowns and completely different levels of offensive capability, which is the real big split. But in terms of big 20-yard plays, explosive plays, contested catches, Darren Waller is right up there. He's one of the best tight ends in football. Mm-hmm. If depending on where I'm starting, but if you could sneak him into the top of the third round, if you can get him there, I'm definitely in. Back of the second, probably not. But it just depends who's available. Because if you're going back at you're starting with Christian McCaffrey, and then you could go Darren Waller and insert running back X here. That's a real nice way to start your draft.
And Dobbins, for example, you could go CMC, Waller, Dobbins, kind of.
Yeah. It'd be a perfectly strong way to build. Because and of all the tight ends, Darren Waller has the best chance of any other tight end to end Travis Kelce's 6-year streak of being the tight end one.
Yeah,
nobody else has got a chance, I don't think.
No. Kittle, middle of the third round, ADP 29-30.
No, I love the talent, love the player, love watching him play. One of my favorite players to watch. Great dude, but just with how much they're going to run the football, you're relying on unsustainable big plays for Kittle and touchdowns. And I think paying up that price is not worth it for me.
Yeah, totally with you. Pitch, you said you're out. I guess is it the rookie thing? Is it the system?
I've drafted Pitts in a few places purely because I just want the fun ride of going with Kyle Pitts. And I will say, again, it is a bit more the rookiness. I think the Falcons offense probably won't be great. I will say, as another late round guy I've been grabbing, especially in best balls, is Hayden Hurst. Because one of the things that people are enamored with Kyle Pitts is the idea that he's going to be replacing Julio Jones a lot and playing out wide and lining up out right. That means Hayden Hurst is going to be on the field, and they haven't picked up his contract. I get it. They've invested the 4th overall pick in Kyle Pitts. Of course, they're not going to try and keep another top paid tight end around. That being said, this year, I think he's well within lines. He has 60, 70 targets, a few touchdowns. He's a big target. He's a good enough athlete, and he's free.
Yeah, I don't mind Hayden Hurst this year for sure. I'm with you. For me, I can't buy Andrews just because I don't think the volume's there. Listen, I love the touchdown threat, love the player.
Yeah.
I worry about with Andrews. I worry about where do I don't see more than 70 catches, and that's my issue. Hockenson, I just worry about the whole talent of Detroit. I just don't want really any part of it unless I absolutely have to. I can understand why people go, well, there's an opportunity here. Yeah, there is, but has Jared Goff really, really sold you enough to make him overly relevant? I'm not so sure. Logan Thomas. I like Logan Thomas. I think his ADP is a little high for what I want to do at the position, but if he's there in the 9th round, I'll grab him. I think
absolutely.
I think he's a top 3 tight end for me with Fitz and that whole offense.
I completely agree. Preseason usage has been positive. They gave him a new contract, and last year was his first year full-time playing tight end. So, good things are coming for LT3.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then you've got Higbee, who for me is my Evan Ingram. For me, I think
I can see it. I've drafted some Higbee. I've drafted a little bit of Higbee as well when the price has been right. He's started to creep up though recently. I was getting him earlier on. That price has started to come up, and so I've pivoted away. But talent is clear. You don't go on the run that he did in 2019 without having some serious talent. It's just whether he can put it all together, get the usage right, and then demand the targets when he's out there.
So what we're saying, and I'm going to summarize this, is that we've got 2 tight ends at the top of the board where you could definitely put them in consideration of taking. You'd fade Kittle. I agree. I would fade Kittle. I'd fade Pitts. Andrews, if you want to go that way. Hockenson, fine. I don't feel like ever returns, but I get people wanting to do that. But then there's so many late options, as you mentioned, that you can combo up. Higbee, you're saying Ingram, Gronk is down there. You get Gronk in like the 12th round now.
Yeah.
There's so many guys that you can
Gronk got better and
later.
better. He hadn't played football for ages, and he got better and better and better, and was a star in the Super Bowl. He's going to have some spike weeks. He's going to be touchdown dependent, but hey, a touchdown and 2 catches is a tight end 1 week most times.
It really is. Hunter Henry's down there. I think we're in the same boat here, that if you're looking at a standard or a PPR draft, either invest really early or just fade till like the 10th round and just go pick a couple of guys up late on. And I think you'll do fine. And as you're saying, you're going to stream somewhere between the tight end 5 and the tight end 7, which is all you need.
It is all you need. If you dominate, if you can strengthen your other positions. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm with you 100%. I think that's the route I would go. It's the route I tend to go. I don't really want to be picking up too many other tight ends. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Tell everyone where they can find your work, all the great things you're doing down under Bowl, all your tweets, all your articles, everything you're doing right now.
For sure. Thanks, man. So you can see on the screen, if you're watching, if you're listening, it's at @FF_Down Under on Twitter. If you're interested in any in the Down Under Bowl, fantasyfootballdownunder.com. If you are looking for another podcast and you want to check out the Vault Studio Network feed, we've got a few shows going on there. We've got our fantasy show. The boys, JA and a rotating cast of heroes are doing the NFL show, which is just pure news, talk about football, always good. And we've also got a new podcast of college football down under. They've joined the Vault Studio feed as well. So 3 shows coming at you, going to be on a weekly basis coming through the season. So if you search the Vault Studio podcast, Vault Studio Podcast Network, you'll find that there. And yeah, I write for dynastyfootballfactory.com. Check us out over there. We've got some great content coming out. And as a left of field, if anyone happens to be a mixed martial arts fan, a UFC fan, I've also recently started a new podcast called the Punch Drunk Podcast. We are on Twitter at punchdrunkpod_, and you can find us on every podcast network and social media, Punch Drunk Pod. We're just two dudes shooting the shit about the UFC and having fun.
I love that. I don't know where you get time to do all the my struggles with the one pod, but thanks for coming on, my man. Rush Nation, great guest again this week. We've solved running back for you. We've solved wide receiver. We've solved tight end. So enjoy the preseason. Enjoy everything you've got left. Check out Lewis's work and everything you do. I mentioned Manscaped at the top of the show. Very blessed to have them. In terms of the Lawnmower 4.0, it's actually one of the really good things about it is it has a 4000K LED spotlight to really helps you get into the more difficult to reach places. It gives you a far more precise shave. I can testify for that. I won't show the cameras or anything else. And also, it has wireless charging. That's the other good thing about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Really good way to just keep your battery life longer without having to worry about plugging it in. So many great things about the Lawnmower 4.0. I can't rate it enough. It's a fantastic product. And you definitely don't want to be using the same razor for your face as you do for your family.
You do not.
No. So get 20% off. Use the code 5yard at manscaped.com. You also get free worldwide shipping and, unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Lewis, thanks for coming on. Rush Nation, thank you for everything as always and for putting up with some of the technicals while I've been left to run the ship on my own. It will look a lot nicer next week, I promise, with nicer backgrounds and logos and things.
and nicer looking guests.
No.
I
know, I had to give you the full...
Speaking of technical difficulties, I was just about to finish the exit for you. I thought you'd gone.
I just wanted you to have the full screen for a minute just to show how great, what a good-looking bloke you are. Thanks as always, my man. I'll let you go.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Murph, and everyone in Rush Nation. Good luck for the season.
Brilliant. As always, thanks so much. Check out all the other pods this week, and we'll tune in next week. But until then, keep rushing.